Okay, told my friend, today's Daf Yomi is Nedarim Daf Chav Gimel, Nedarim 23, and we are on the bottom of Chav Beis and Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. So the Gemara tells us that Rabbi Shimon bar Rebbe Havoi Nidro Mishra. He had a vow, and he wanted to annul his vow. So Asla come out the Rabbanan. He went in front of the rabbis. Amrulei. Did they say maybe you had this in mind when you made the vow? Meaning to say they're trying to find a Pesach. A Pesach is an opening, really, to try to find some unforeseen consequences of the vow, which he hadn't intended. So they kept giving him suggestions, and he kept saying, "Yeah, I had that in mind." So they couldn't annul it. So they say, "Adat dahachi amar in, adat dahachi in." He did this kamazim and did this several times on top of 23a. The rabbis kept going back and forth from the sun to the shade, from the shade to the sun. And so they weren't able to find anything. What's this expression from the sun to the shade, shade to the sun? Reminds us of the end of Ksuvos, that the rabbis were always trying to be not in distress, but here they were in distress, always moving from the sun to the shade. So the Pashup Pshat is that they were spending the whole day on this. It starts off sunny, goes shady, sunny. The whole day they're spending on this. Others say, the Maharsha says that they're in a special house, which part of it didn't have a roof on it, and they were in that part of the house different times. They went there when it wasn't too hot, but whatever it is, it means they spent a long time and they were in distress. So then Amarle Bitnis Breda Abashol. So then Bitnis, the son of Abashol, spoke up. He was the son of Abashol ben Bitnis. He says, Mina Dart Adata the Mitzari Rabbana Mitula Shimsham Shimshal Tula. He said, "Oh, when you made this vow, did you have in mind the rabbis are going to be such Famish, they're going to keep going from the sun to the shade and back and forth? Did you keep having that in mind?" He said, "No, I didn't." Amar lo v'shar, and then they annulled the vow on that basis. They annulled the vow on that basis. If you had only known how much stress it would cause to the rabbis, would you have made this vow? So Rabbi Shmuel Bar, and that was enough to annul the vow. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Rabbi Yossi, Avoi Nidro and Mishra. Rabbi Shmuel also had a vow to annul. Also, Kaimei do Rabbanan. So he came in front of Kaimei do Rabbanan, came to the rabbis. Amrulei Nadarta Data Dahachi. So they kept giving him these reasons that maybe you didn't have this in mind when you made the vow. Amrulei in Nadarta Data Dahachi. Amrulei in. He kept saying, "Yeah, I had this in mind." They did this kama zivnin. He did this several times. So, keeping the achaza hu katra, there was a laundryman there. The mitzvah rabban, he saw, "Oh, you're giving the rabbis a hard time." This guy was a patriot. He was loyalist to the rabbis. So, machya b'ucha de katra, he smacked Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yossi with this laundryman's tool. Laundryman's tool, and he said, Amar Adata de Machali Katra Nadri. He said and then he said, "Oh, now I've got a Pesach, because I never intended that a laundryman was going to smack me over with his tool." And he annulled his vow. Either he annulled it himself, did he just annul it himself, or did he go to the Rabbanan and ask them to annul his vow on this basis? But in any event, he annulled it because somebody smacked him in the face. So the Gemara says, but it says, this is not really a Pesach. This is really what's called a Nolad. Because he didn't anticipate that he was going to be smacked with the laundry tool. The Tanina imposal b'noad, and we have a brisa that says we're not poseach with a noad. So if that's the case, what's the difference between a Pesach and a noad? A Pesach is, if you had known this, would you have made the vow? A noad is something new arose, and this new striking arose. He couldn't have anticipated somebody was going to hit him, and so therefore that was like something that was born, so to speak. And so therefore that's not a valid to annul a vow. But based upon, if it would be just based upon, oh, I hadn't realized that this was going to happen, that's a Pesach. But something new entirely happening, that's called Noad, and that's not sufficient to annul a vow. So Amarle, so Rabbi Yossi says, Hailav Noad. This is actually not Noad. It's Shlichi Apikori de Mitzvah Rabbanim, because there's a lot of people called Apikori, maybe it's like Apikorsis, comes from the Greek word Epicurean, people who are like, we don't care about anything, cynics, people who doubt the rabbis. It gave them a hard time. And so I should have anticipated that somebody was going to stick up for the rabbis and smack him with the laundryman's tool. So I should have anticipated. So it's not Noah. Gemara tells another story to Beiso, that Abaye, so Abaye's wife had a daughter from previous marriage. Who Amar L'Krivai. Abai said, I want to marry her off to my relatives. And he Amar L'Kriva. She said, I want to marry her off to my relatives. Amar La. Abai takes a vow upon her. He says, Titasra Hanasi Alech. Iavras Adait. He said, if you don't listen to me, you're not going to be allowed to have any benefit from me. But guess what? But guess what? She went ahead and she didn't listen to Abaye. She married her off to her relatives. Also coming to Rabbi Yosef. So Abaye comes to his Rabbi Yosef. He said, Rabbi Yosef says to his Talmud Abaye, he said, if you had only known she wasn't going to listen to you, would you have made the vow? Amar, well. He said, no, I would never make the vow of Sharia. So it was allowed. Why isn't that in Nidre Zeruzin? Because in Nidre Zeruzin, like we've been talking about, where you try to encourage the person, and there you don't even need to get the vow annulled, because there you didn't really intend. When he says, I'll do 4 dinarim, he really intends from the beginning to do 3. He was just trying to encourage her. Here, Abai didn't want her to marry. So the Gemara says, Umi Shari Ki Agavna. Is this case really allowed? Yes. Somebody once made a vow that his wife can't do aliyah regel. It doesn't here, commentaries say it doesn't here, we're not talking about a pilgrimage, because based on Mikdash was not standing, although some, like the Maharatz Chayes, want to say, yeah, really, they were still doing pilgrimages even after the temple was destroyed. Here, what he's talking about was he didn't want her to go to the shir. The women used to go to the rabbi's drasha on Yantif. He didn't want her to go. V'avral daito, and she didn't listen to him. V'alto regel. She went up on Yantif to the shir. V'ba'afnei Rabbi Yossi. She comes to Rabbi Yossi. He comes to Rabbi Yossi and wants to annul the vow. Amar lo v'iu ha'ita yodea shalverta datech v'ola regel kuma darta. Said, if you had known she wasn't going to listen to you, you made this vow. He said, no. Amarlo v'tir Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi annulled the vow. Okay. Now up to the Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar and Yaakov's taught. Even somebody who wants to make a vow that his friend should eat with him, and he's basically saying, I want you to eat with me, and he's trying to encourage him to eat. And the way the Mefarsh explains, if you don't eat for me, you're never going to have, if you don't come to me for lunch, you're never going to be able to have any benefit from me. So under those circumstances, Yomar lo kol neder shani asad lidor hubata. He says, any vow that I'm going to make in the future will be nullified. So it's a machokas whether or not the other person hears this or not. But so he says he makes this vow to nullify it. As long as when he remembers the vow, when he makes the vow, he remembers that he had annulled it. So the Gemara says, Well, if he says, what's the point of all this? If he says any vow that I'm going to make will be nullified, the other guy hears this, then he's not going to come. He's not going to show up. He's going to say, it's not the mudar will hear it, and he's not going to listen to him. But he's not going to be intimidated by the oath, because he says, the value made against me is anyway going to be nullified. So what do I care? So the Gemara says, okay, you're right. I'm going to start at the top of 23b, Chisuri Mefsra. We have to assume that our Mishnah is missing some words. V'alchi Katani. This is what the Mishnah is saying. And we're going to see at the bottom that this is not a typical Chisuri Mefsra. We're going to see this at the bottom of the daf, that the Chisuri Mefsra here, throughout Shas, either Chisuri Mefsra is missing words, or maybe a text that needs some editing. But here the Chisuri Mefsra means that, according to the conclusion of the Mishnah, of the Gemara, that the rabbis intentionally shrouded this Mishnah in opacity, or they kept it from being completely clear because they didn't want people to be making vows and annulling them, because they were worried that could lead to frivolous vows. So the Gemara says on the top of 23b that the Mishnah is missing some words. This is how we read it. Somebody who wants his friend to eat with him, but his friend is refusing. Umadiro nidre umadiro. And so then what does he do? He makes a vow. That's considered nidre zeruzinu. That's considered a neder zeruzin, meaning just a vow to encourage him, and you don't even have to annul it. It's automatically annulled. And then now on top of that, somebody wants his vows the whole year never to be applicable. He wants to be able to take away from himself this concept of being bound by his vows. What should he do? Yamo b'Rosh Hashanah. He should stand on Rosh Hashanah. Like here too is a machokes Rishonim. Does it mean specifically Rosh Hashanah? It means any day of the year. But why does it mention Rosh Hashanah? Because specifically that's the time when the most serious people are serious. Or maybe you do it at the beginning of the year for the whole year. Anyway, we have the practice of annulling our vows from the past on Erev Rosh Hashanah, annulling all the vows from the previous year. But here we're talking about in the future. Yama b'Rosh Hashanah, and you should stay. V'yomer kol neider shani asa lidor yeh batel. Every vow that I'm going to make will be nullified. Bovachi has zachar b'shas neder. Now the Mishnah says a line which is not clear, as long as he remembers it when he makes the vow. So he makes the vow. When he makes the vow, he remembers that he had nullified it. Well, the Gemara asks, "Izachar akre l'tanai." If he remembers it, he's uprooted the condition. The kayim le'lo nidre, and he's upheld his vow. So the Gemara says, "Amar Abaye, tani ubavad shelo yeh zachar b'shas neder." No, it means as long. Abaye says the opposite. As long as he doesn't remember when he made the vow, that he's already nullified it. But if he remembers when he made the vow that he already nullified it, then he's basically nullifying his nullification because he's restating the vow, and so that wouldn't be effective. That's what Abaye says. Rava says, he says, no, as long as you remember it when you made the vow, then it's going to be nullified. What does that mean? What does that mean? So the Gemara says, Rava explains, what are we talking about here? You made a vow on Rosh Hashanah that you made a stipulation on Erev Rosh Hashanah that all your vows are going to be nullified, but you don't know. And you say that you basically have said this vow on Erev Rosh Hashanah that for example you said all your vows will be nullified. Will be nullified. But you don't know what you used. You don't know if you made your condition, if it was based on bread or wine. But he said, but he remembers that he made a condition that if he's going to make a vow from something specific, i.e., from either bread or wine, then his vow will be nullified. But he doesn't remember what he stipulated. Am I stipulating if I make a vow against bread, it'll be nullified, or a vow against wine, it'll be nullified? And now he makes this vow against either bread or wine. And if he remembers when he makes the vow, and so if he remembers when he makes the vow, that whether or not he vowed against bread or wine, and he said, I'm making this vow like in accordance with basically what my intent was from the beginning, then that if I stipulated against bread that the vow will be nullified, then I still want it to be nullified. Then nidre leis b'mamasha, then there's no mamashas to the vow. And so therefore the vow will not be effective. Because right now he doesn't remember what exactly he stipulated against. So he says, well, if it was against bread, then it'll be nullified. He doesn't remember. But if he doesn't say when he makes the vow that he's stipulating on the basis of the initial vow, then we're going to say the condition is removed, the stipulation is removed, and the vow is going to be valid. That's how Rava explains it. We'll see. Rava says, we'll read it. Rava Amar Kidon Sheistam Roshana V'Yadam Masna. Rava Asu Afuge Alei Devayev. Rava is not arguing Tabaye. The Modu the Kol Sheino Zachar to know Klal B'Shas Nidra on Neder Bata. Because he admits that if he doesn't remember at all his condition when he makes the vow will be nullified. So what's he? The Rebbe doesn't want to say that the Mishnah or the is corrupt. So therefore, what does he say? We're talking about a case where he remembers it. This is how we teach it. Somebody who wants to nullify a Rosh Hashanah should stand up and say the following. And in this case, there's two laws. If he wouldn't have remembered his stipulation at all when he makes the vow, well, then for sure the vow will be nullified. But let's say he remembers a little bit of his condition, but he doesn't remember it completely. Like, for example, he made the condition of Rosh Hashanah, and he doesn't know what was the condition. Meaning to say he made the condition about something specific, and he doesn't remember if it was about bread or wine. But he remembers that he made this condition. Under these circumstances, if he says, I'm doing it on the initial intent, and now I'm repeating it, then we're going to say it's no. Then we're going to say the vow has no mamashas to it. Anyway, we continue because the next piece of the Gemara is the part that is, as we say, the part that everybody has a lot to share, because the Gemara says, Rav Huna bar Chinna savar l'midrash b'pirkei. Huna bar Chinna wanted to teach this Mishnah in public, and he wanted to teach that if you want that your vows will not be valid the whole year, you should stand up on Rosh Hashanah and nullify the vows for the whole year. This is what we call the Chasuri Mechser. He says, so Rava says, the Tana specifically was so same. He said it in an elliptical manner. And you're teaching it in public, meaning to say, the Tana didn't say this. They didn't want everybody to know this, and you're teaching it in public. So this is the question of what we say is Kol Nidre, because we have this practice of getting up on Rosh Hashanah and knowing the vows for the coming year. So many say that this Gemara is the basis for this. So we look at the Tosfos, and the Tosfos says as follows: the Kamashma, the Rava Moda, the Shachach Meikara. So first of all, he says, he talks about our sugya, And then Tosa says, when we talk Shmaitin, from our teaching, Mochek Rabbeinu Tam used to erase Mashakasim b'Machzorim, the text of our Machzorim, the Kol Nidre. Rabbeinu Tam is writing in the 12th century, so we see Kol Nidre was a prayer, was already, because it's not in the Gemara, so it was something that was post-Talmudic, and the practice developed it, saying it on the night of Yom Kippur. And we say here that Rabbeinu Tam used to erase the following phrase: Yom Kippurim Shavara, Yom Kippur Arba Aleinu L'Tova. He used to erase the phrase that Kol Nidre is on the past. From we're annulling every vow from last year until this year. Rabbeinu Tam says it's a mistake. They think they're annulling last year's vows. That's wrong. He said, first of all, Ataras Nedarim, the base of Ataras Nedarim is, like we've said, regret. And this is not a situation of regret. And second of all, Rabbeinu Tam says we need a bezdin. There's no bezdin here. We need either Yachan Nimcha or Gimel Yotos. And third or more, Allah is like Rav Papa, who says another reason why Kol Nidre should not work, we have to specify the vow. We're not specifying it here. And fourth question, here on Kol Nidre, you're annulling your own vow. And Rabbeinu Tam says, no, they're atzmo yefshalo lahatir. You're not, you can annul it yourself. So therefore, Rabbeinu Tam made a change in the words. And he said, Yom Kippurim zeh, Yom Kippurim haba, aleinu l'tova. Ve'unidarim shel shana haba hu d'sharina. So he said that we say the Kol Nidre on the future, not on the past. Most of our Machzorim today have both. We have the past and the future. But Rabbeinu Tam was relying upon our Mishnah, that you should stand up at the beginning of the year and make the vow for the whole year, as long as you don't remember. And says the Tosfos, "V'afagav the Omed Adam b'Rosh Hashanah Tanan." Even though our Mishnah says a person stands in Rosh Hashanah, v'anam b'Yom HaKippur Navdinan, Ashachin Yom Kippurim de'ikar Rosh Hashanah. We know that Rosh Hashanah is sometimes, Yom Kippur is sometimes called Rosh Hashanah. So these are the questions that Rabbeinu Tam raises on the practice that they had of saying Kol Nidre on the past, and he says to say it on the future. So there are other questions about it that are brought down amongst the Rishonim, and also this developed to certain practices as a result of this. Also, you're not supposed to be matir in the Nedarim on Yontif itself, which is why some had the position, most had the position, you're supposed to start Kol Nidre before Shkia, before the sunset, before the Yontif has started. Also, the idea that people are saying it accompanying the Chazan because they have to be annulling his vows as well. So this is the source of the idea of the concept of Kol Nidre. I once heard in the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik, I don't know if Rabbi Soloveitchik actually said this, but I heard this in the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik. What is the power of Kol Nidre? People are crying at Kol Nidre. People are pouring out their heart before God. They were just saying we're annulling our vows. What's the concept here? So he said, no, a vow is the whole basis of our faith. First of all, we have Hashem makes a vow with us. We vow to serve Hashem. It's the whole basis of our faith. But to me, when I was hearing that, what I was hearing was, how many things have we said, utterances, which we would like to get back, and we think we can't. Most of our problems have come as a result of that. And so therefore, that's why Kol Nidre is, to me, such a powerful prayer, because we're trying to say all these things that I said in haste, in anger, which I wish to get back. Those are the things that we want to know in Yom Kippur. We'll stop our recording here, and